Today I will tell you a tale of two Buffas. Hello! It's Kamen Rider Geats time! Gates and Geats and woes! It's a brand new arc and we are steamrolling headlong into this Kamen Rider endgame. We start this episode, however, simple enough. The DGP is, as it's been for the last bit, in a head spin, and they're just giving belts to a bunch of people in the hopes that one of them can beat Buffa. Just go, dude, fight man. Tamori gives some belts to John and Ben. Oh, hell yeah, John and Ben. We haven't seen them in a bit. And they run in as Tamori is reluctantly giving a belt to Neon. Because Buffa busts in as Ben and John henshin to try and fight him off and save Neon. Over and over and over again, we see that the DGP is just callously throwing bodies at Buffa, right? And they just get so desperate, Shamari begs Kekara and Jean to fucking help. They have nobody. Everyone dies, right? And Jean stays, realizing, like, hey, Ace taught me, like, hey, you should help others and do all that kind of stuff. And Buffa just shows up and says, like, no, I'm strong now. You don't get to just keep hurting people like this. Keep callously treating others' lives like they're fodder, like they're pawns, like all of this kind of stuff. Everyone transforms, everyone henshins, and Shamari basically points out, like, my dude, y'all mortals are just willing to give up everything for your desires because you're materialism and all this kind of things, and Buffa just isn't having any of it, and he beats them down. However, Ace is revived, but Ace's sights are on the DGP itself, seemingly proving Buffa's point correct. On the other hand, we see at the beginning of the episode, life has moved on a little bit. People are searching for their loved ones. Kewa's sister is looking for him. Neon is living her life the best she can through the ignorance imposed on her through the amnesia. And it's moving. Life is going on. And then Buffa stomps in, steamrolls, all of that, just trying to destroy the last remnants of the Kamen Riders. He hunts down all of them, almost reveling in his power of how he's able to finally actually do this thing. And he chases Neon, of course. Again, we have the scene where he busts in and he starts to fight Zine and Kamari, and he's decimating them, all the while gloating, saying that they can't beat him. This is his world now. Stop. However, Ace is somehow revived, but his sights are on the DGP, showing what the real problem is. Not the riders that are ultimately victims in all of this as well, but the DGP for enabling it all. So, I don't think it needs to be said, but I will say it anyway. Buffa is supposed to be a hypocrite. That's the point of his character. His motives are fundamentally coming from a good place, seeing how Kamen Riders can hurt and harm, and how Kamen Riders in and of itself are causing harm to themselves and to the world. And he wants to stop people from getting hurt because of these Kamen Rider aspects. But his actions show how blinded he is to it all. He couldn't internalize this whole thing as like a self-sacrifice. You know, it's pointed out to him at the very beginning that, hey, your actions now are kind of like what the DGP does. And he agrees. See, he may see it as like the last one to sin. He is taking it all on, and he is stopping Kamen Riders from happening anymore, and just, no, I'm the last, that's it, we're done. But in another way of looking at it is he's honestly just venting out his unaddressed trauma on these individuals and not actually looking at the grander picture. This episode was great. I loved it. The action was solid. The direction of the plot is interesting, especially for this. I don't know if it's the final arc, but this new arc. However, I think we can all agree across the globe, Ben and John got robbed. They were robbed. Give me the suits, Toei. Give these fucking legends full-on suits, a full-on henshin, please. Please, please, please. Somehow, some way, I would love it. I think everyone would love it. And on that note, it was fucking wild to me to just see a full-on English conversation in Kamen Rider. I cannot wait to see what happens next. And no, I have not looked at the leak. I will wait. Just because I'm gonna wait, whatever. But hey, in the meantime, like, comment, subscribe, do all the things to help me out on this here little website. You can also follow me on a variety of social media platforms, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at Boingo_Rider. You can follow me on Tumblr. I post funny pictures sometimes. Yeah. And you can also follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/BoingoRider. I stream Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Yeah. Yeah. I do all the things. Catch me on the internet. See all the stuff. Yeah. In the meantime, in the meaniest meantime, we have some comments. First up, from the ever-classic Fish Pop. We now finally know the gardener's name is Archmetal. Also, that Geats Buffa fight was pretty cool. Specifically, I like Geats using the chainsaw against Buffa. Speaking of, the latter's upgrade next week episode looks nifty with those golden horns. On the note of the golden horns, it's a cool little accent to show, like, yeah, no, he's powered up, all that kind of stuff. But this is me probably looking a little bit too much into it. I find meaning in metaphors that may not exist, right? Buffa is a bull man who now has golden accents. He's a golden bull, right? He's a false winner. He is the false idea of how to solve the problem of what the DGP is doing. Is like, oh, just get rid of the Kamen Riders and then everything's solved. It's like, no, that's a false dichotomy, right? He's not what we should be looking at. And I think it's interesting that it's a golden bull here, right? And Geats is, of course, as we all know, a kitsune. Kitsune, in Shinto myth and beliefs, are messengers of the gods. You know, they are holy beings. So in that regard, Geats is kind of here to lead and, like, message the idea of, like, the DGP is bad for the goddess? Maybe? Maybe that's how all this kind of, like, ties into each other with the kitsune goddess aspect? I don't know. But could be. Next up, from Toa Nui 1. I'm getting surprised with the results of the episode. First off, unless Geats has already reincarnated and has just been waiting in the background, I don't think he or anyone else that fell down the holes are dead. So I am preemptively going to say that I called Keiwa not being dead. Despite it being almost obvious, I'm reading right off. I will reference TFS when it's confirmed. That being said, I truly did not expect Buffa to be last man standing and to make his wish. Although with how it ended and what I saw from the next time on, I definitely get the feeling it's going to be Monkey's Paw real hard on him, considering the Desire Royale. that's what subs I watched call it, looks an awful like the DGP, and I'm really hoping the DGP is a cult considering how the producer acted when talking about Ace's mom. Also, it's kind of sad for Yamato, again, just might be my subs, since it's revealed the DGP was originally a lot lower stakes with lesser prize, probably meaning that Yamato weren't originally meant to be killed since no one died in the original version. Also, I can't guarantee my series would be coming anytime soon. Only have Tatoba and I can't remember it. Gakakiriba? Kiriba. I can't remember those enough to remember what that actual form was at the moment, and I don't even know all in the show forums have been announced, let alone released yet. Hey, no rush on that, dude. It's just I like encouraging people to create things. It's just a thing I like to do. So, hey, do it in your own... Yeah. But with that kind of revelation with the Yamatos and, like, thinking of it like that, it kind of makes a lot of sense, because the Yamatos early on were very goofy. They were very fun. They were dressing up in costumes and playing roles, and it feels very much like it was meant to be a gag, you know? It was meant to be fun. And then you just fucking murder them, and and the more we see, it's just more of like, oh, these guys are victims too. And it's, yeah. And I'd say there's only like a really fine line between celebrity worship and a cult. And since they are doing a lot of stuff with celebrity and parasocial relationships and idol culture and all that kind of stuff, I think it's fair to say like it is a cult. It is a cult, but it's not a cult of like pure spirituality and religiosity. It's a cult of personality. It's that kind of cult, you know? There's something to be said there. There is something there. You know what I mean? Next up from Esconde. I gotta say, Yuya Takahashi cooked again. If you don't lose, you'll get a chance to win. I'll take you on anytime. Ace. I loved how the words Ace said to Michinaga from before come to fruition with the script being flipped a bit on how things played out this episode. Ace ends up, more than understandably, furious at Niram, where he reunited with his mother. The producer refused to give him answers and keep her imprisoned. When the two of them too focused on each other, Michinaga, through Baroba's plan, manages to finally get the win he'd been hungry for so long by striking at an opportune moment, fighting similarly and fighting smartly, and utilizing the mechanics of the game. A stark contrast with how his usual headstrong approaches failed. My hat's off to Michinaga and the rest of the plant crew for achieving victory and taking two of the most powerful players off the board in the process. I like to think that some of the Keiwa's luck rubbed off on Sarah, and her and the kid are the only survivors of the Mario Party death game. As what could be the final arc of the series about to start, I am very excited to see how things will go from here. The game now becoming a Desire Royale, the DGP administrator from the flashback with all those ID cores, Jean, Chamari, John, Ben, and possibly even Sarah joining the fight against Michinaga. Well, Ben and John might take a second. Might take a second for them to get back up, but they will. They will. Our Western Kamen Rider boys will fucking stand up. They will fight another day, because you cannot stop a Kamen Rider. You know, but with like how the DGP and, well, the JGP to an extent, because it's just meant to be like a parody, dark reflection of the Desire Grand Prix, they're kind of being representative of like systemic issues people face, of systemic inequality, yada 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 yada. The luck thing kind of ties into it really well, of like some people do get lucky in the system and then they become successful and they're well off, all that kind of stuff. So maybe there is something there. And ultimately the plan worked because it twisted the DGP on itself. You know? We already know how powerful that can be, and just twisting it onto them is just like, oh, you used our rules against us, you clever bitch. And what was I gonna? There was another thing I just fucking thought of that I needed to say. I'm an idiot. Hold on, let me go over your comment again. I'm sorry. That's right, Desire Royale. That they're stripping the pretenses, because like the first kind of like death game story was Battle Royale. They're literally just going like, hey, we're referencing this specific story now, this specific story, and it's just like, oh, all the pretense is gone. It's just like pure text now. It's like, yeah, no, the show that we have, the people fighting for scraps of desire, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a death game. It's a death game where people's putting their, like, yeah, it's Kamen Rider Squid Game. It's Kamen Rider Hunger Games. That's what it is. It's not Fortnite. it's what if Fortnite, but like if you lose at Fortnite, you don't live. You know? It's interesting. It is interesting. Next up, from Sakura Tora. This season of Kamen Rider, the bad guys are handled quite intelligently. Instead of just attacking them, Jumatos went after Hearts and Will to fight and neutralize them. I can't remember a writer where the secondary and main are both gone, leaving it to others to fight and hopefully revive them. The DGP2, as you said, very cleverly made it the nature of the game so that writers see each other as rivals and not really form deep bonds. Why bother? They will drop out and forget everything anyways. Ace has probably seen that so many times that it wasn't until now he's made deeper bonds with other DGP writers. It's why the DGP hasn't really been challenged until now. Even Team Yamato were more unified and as a result able to lay a brilliant trap. Ace's breakdown and that brief hopeful smile trying to and failing to break through tears, it was hard to see him this vulnerable after being so reserved when it comes to expressing sadness. I hope Ace continues being more vulnerable, especially with Keiwa and Neon. It'd help, I think, with Keiwa's misplaced anger if he knew how weighed down with everything Ace is. Although he said Ace is Ace, in my opinion, it doesn't really think of Ace as a person with feelings. He sees him as a strong, unflappable force. Neon, I hope, realizes how important the bond she's made with those two, and the longing part of the arc is her realizing she's loved by Keiwa, Ace, John and Ben, and Sarah, and she's going to do everything to get Ace and Keiwa back alongside Sarah and Jean. Interesting, in the Circle game, the rules change from picking a color to all the bright colors. You think you'd understand the rules of the game, and then the house cheats and changes the rules so you lose anyway. Only Sarah and the kids survived because they were standing on the one black circle. Many lives lost for one winner's happiness, and in the end, it's all entertainment. The JGP games, especially Heaven and Hell, were depraved, but they were making a point to show what the DGP has been doing for centuries. Interesting how one can compare that to things such as rampant consumerism, a few richer countries having a measure of comfort at the expense of poor countries, and even future generations of resources run out. I mean, I've been skirting it a lot. I've been trying to say the loud part quiet and the quiet part, like, you know, but yeah, no, this season has a lot of like critiques of capitalism and that kind of stuff, mainly around entertainment and that kind of thing. Like, to give a more like American example that's like more readily understandable, it'd be like a high schooler in a poor community playing football because that's the only way they see to get out. You know, it's that kind of mindset of like, the only way I can get out of this bad situation is by putting my body on the line, putting my life on the line, that kind of once-in-a-lifetime chance that may never happen and could leave you destitute, you know? And, yeah, it's just, like, seeing how they all care about each other, and it's really nice. It really helps out. Really, it just shows that yeah, community does help in that regard. And I do think the JGP basically being the same as the DGP is the point. You know, the like, it didn't feel different because the DGP was already cruel, and them just going like, hey, we're doing it now, didn't change anything because it's just as cruel. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head of like how inequality is just like part of it, because like the sponsors, they don't give a shit. They can go to the future, they can go back home, and they're fine. They don't have to worry about it. You know, that's the big thing about all this stuff, is like they've created a problem that they do not give a shit about, and it's hurting hundreds of millions of people, and the only people that care are the ones in it. And it's just, yeah. That's why the parasocial arcs were like so good. It's like that empathy from like the essentially the upper class, the bourgeoisie, that developing that empathy is good, because then they go like, oh shit, you have nothing, but why do I have so much? And they help out. Gene's example of that. Like, Gene realizes how much he has and how like that has hurt Ace and the other players, and he's like, yeah, no, Buff is hurting people. I'm gonna try and stop him. You know, really implemented in this episode. And finally, from Blaze Chaos, and real quick, because it was never like an officially stated rule, I only tried to pick like 5 or 6 comments to do for these little things, just so it doesn't go super long. So if you don't see your comment, it's not me saying like your comment's bad. It's just more of like I wanted to pick like 5 really good chunky comments. So that's just how it works. I'm sorry. But finally, from Blaze Chaos, Baroba is the MVP of this arc. Buffa can't do anything without her. At the end of the day, Buffa won because he accepted, despite reluctantly at first, Baroba's help to crush the Kamen Riders. And now in the next episode, he'll be relishing in the desire by beating even more Kamen Riders, but at what cost? Since we saw Ace, Tycoon, and even Punk Jack's ID cores, I bet they would be resurrected soon by Sero, the executive producer, and the mask guy. Oh, okay, cool. It's probably some information that was put somewhere. To participate in the Deadly Desire Royale for one last time, with lives on the line and probably the whole world. There are also scans of new animal-themed rider. My bet's on Sarah, and the fans have really wanted so long for her to join since episode 9, when KOL was forcibly retired in the previous episode. And Daichi is seen in the leaks fighting a new Kamen Rider. Do you find it odd that Daichi really didn't do much in this arc? I think it was intentional to keep our eyes away from him, considering he has his desires of his own. What will happen to Arc Metal, or should I say, the one Jamato? Brain's not thinking. The Jamato theme on prehistoric marine animal. I can't wait to see Jamato uprising and how it would impact both the heroes and the GP, who have killed many of their species for so long, just so that the future people can have their fun. I wonder if they're the mid-boss that screws up Tsuno's desires, Royale, or the final boss at the end. And imagine they slowly devour the human population so they inevitably rule the world and overwhelm the heroes in the DGP with their sheer numbers, as they can slowly but surely kill the whole world while using their innate powers of transforming to the humans at their advantage. And if Punk Jack will be back, how? Either way, I can't wait to see next arc. Big W for Jamato team. Hitting the heroes where they hurt. I love how competent they are, and they can't win brute force, just win through psychological submission. It definitely feels like the DGP just has like all these issues are just bubbling up, and this is just a breaking point, right? Like, these problems have been circulating since episode 1, and it's just the DGP were so much on a high horse that they didn't think it would hurt them, you know? Much like how people who are rich and powerful don't think that problems affect them, you know, that kind of stuff. It really feels like the DGP is set up to be the big bad. Like, they are the big bad. This episode really just, like, cements it of how the DGP were so callous with throwing bodies at the problem, and Buffa just kind of laying it out there of like, don't, and Ace coming in, it's like, hey, fuck the DGP, you know. And especially with Gene, like, saying, like, no, they kind of corrupted. They didn't always work this way. And I think the way they're going to bring back people back is just right in front of us, you know? The cores have part of their body and used for Jamato. So maybe Jamato bodies, maybe temporary bodies. But also, we saw Ace just get revived by Samuri wishing for it. Maybe Samori's just going to be like, I just kind of want my buddies back. Can we just have, like, heroes? Can we have someone who can fight Buffa, solve the problem? And who knows where that may or may not lead. It's definitely going to be interesting. But hey, that's it for this video of Gateway to Geats and this episode of Kamen Rider Geats. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you liked the episode. Tell me what you thought about it and your thoughts about my thoughts. It's recursive, really. It's recursive. That's all these videos are. And hey, remember, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on the social medias, follow me on Twitch, and until next time, stay geetsing, my buds.